Hello BookTube. For Tag Tuesday, I will be doing the Star Trek Voyager tag. This tag was created by Steve Donahue, who has created a number of Star Trek themed tags over the past few months in celebration of Book Trek, a BookTube event in which participants read Star Trek pastiche fiction and I'm assuming Star Trek nonfiction, although I don't think anybody's yet mentioned any Star Trek related nonfiction that they've read in their Book Trek videos. So this version of Book Trek, which is the second or third, I think, is one that is dedicated to over the summer. So from June, July, and ultimately to August. I don't think it goes into September. But if people who are interested in reading Star Trek pastiche fiction can and Star Trek related works can read those works in these 3 months. So this is the final tag that Steve's going to be creating. Star Trek Voyager was one of a number of Star Trek series that came out in the late 80s and early 90s, and I guess you can also count Star Trek Enterprise in the early 2000s that really reinvigorated Star Trek for a number of years, almost 20 years. Voyager is a bit controversial. It is so the premise of Star Trek Voyager is that the ship is thrown 70,000 light years from Federation space, well, from near Bajoran space to the Delta Quadrant. And they are stranded there at the end of the pilot episode with a crew of Maquis, who are, for the most part, former Starfleet personnel and colonists who oppose the Federation's peace overtures to the Cardassians. And so basically being stuck 70,000 light years and 70 years away from home at maximum warp, the two crews integrate and try to work out a compromise. And over the course of 7 seasons, eventually Voyager does make it home. So this tag, much like the Next Generation and DS9 tag, feature various cast members or crew members, as well as in this case, the ship itself. So let's get going. Oh, before I get to the prompts, I guess I ought to talk a bit about my own relationship with Voyager. So I first encountered Voyager sometime in the mid-second season. At the time, we had cable through, I don't quite remember who. It was some kind of satellite thing. And we didn't get UPN, which was the broadcast network that carried Voyager locally. DS9 was on the CBS affiliate late at night, which really stank. But anyway. So I discovered Voyager and really enjoyed it. And I watched it periodically from the mid second season through to the finale. There were some episodes I think towards the end of the run, I kind of started to fall out of watching Voyager. But I know I came back for the finale. So it's kind of like one of those things where I liked it or I loved it, but I kind of fell out of it later on. And I had thought about watching the whole series again on Netflix, but I never quite got around to it. So Voyager has some great episodes, namely the two-parters, like Scorpion, Basics, Year of Hell, the one with the Hirogen, but there are, and of course the ones with the Borg. But then there are also some really, really terrible ones. So anyway, let's get on to the prompts. Oh, and I will leave a link to Steve's channel in the show notes down below as well. So prompt number 10 For some reason, the prompts are in descending order. The USS Voyager is equipped with bioneural gel packs that are often more trouble than they're worth. Do you suffer from any kind of allergies? Yes, I have hay fever. I was first diagnosed in my late teens. I ended up getting for a period of a few years where every other year my nose would turn into a spigot of blood. I would just have not quite unrelenting nosebleeds, but it felt like it. I mean, I've had similar events happen to me when I was much younger. During summer vacation, my nose would turn into a spigot of blood, but it hadn't done it for a number of years up until my late teens, and then it happened periodically since then. But I'm also suffering from some kind of allergies now, and I have for a few years. It's not as bad as my nose turning into a spigot of blood, but nearly. I do have rather frequent nosebleeds. My one of my nostrils at any given time is stopped up. I used to have really bad coughing fits, but since the pandemic, that's gone away, and I don't quite know why. Although probably that's got to be something that's like outside. So yeah, so I definitely have allergies, and I also have eczema, which I developed a few years ago. Although I have had allergic reactions to certain dishwashing chemicals or the soap. So anyway, so prompt number 9. Captain Janeway is a terrific starship captain who sometimes doesn't know when to back off. Do you share this trait? Can you ever lose focus and need to be pulled away from something? I've never really had that obsessive focus where something just gnaws at me. I'm pretty good at sort of balancing different things. And also, Captain Janeway is an awesome character. Particularly that sort of almost Katharine Hepburn-esque voice that Kate Mulgrew uses. Prompt number 8, First Officer Chakotay returns to Starfleet from the terrorist Maquis. How readily would the friends of your youth recognize you today? So, I don't know. That implies I had friends when I was a youth who would even bother to recognize me today. I was never one who really had friends. I mean, kind of the joke I have is that while astrology is absolute bupkis, I do have the personality of a scorpion. So I am not very sociable most of the time. So I don't know whether or not people who knew me when I was younger, meeting me today, would think I'm a different kind of weird, or I'm the same old weirdo I was when I was a kid. Prompt number 7. Lieutenant Tuvok, who was played by Tim Russ, who just so happens to have been an alumnus to the same university that I went to when I went to college, St. Edward's University in Austin. So Tuvok's precise age is a source of speculation on Voyager, which I must have missed those scenes. Do you feel like your chronological age, younger or older? So I think when I was younger, maybe it might have been one of those things where I think intellectually I felt a bit older. And as I've grown older, I've it's flipped to where I certainly feel much younger than I actually, well, intellectually at least, not intellectually, that may not be the best word. I guess on one level, I certainly feel younger than I actually am physically. Although I am starting to get some of those nagging sort of ailments of middle age. But thinking about it, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I think maybe if people first met me, I seem like well, I guess what you would call an old soul, but I'm not. I've never really been. I don't think. But yeah, I mean that's one that I think probably would have to ask other people who knew me then and actually remember me. Okay, moving on to prompt number 6. Chief Engineer B'elanna Torres is half Klingon and half human, who is maybe a bit of a wimp. I don't actually remember that. But does your own nature contain any radically different elements that you somehow keep aligned? So I am fairly contradictory. If you've watched my channel for any length of time, you will know I I'm contradictory. Let me see here if there's any examples that aren't bookish. So there's a part of me that really values like structured plans and sometimes fairly elaborate plans. And there's a part of me that just wants to fly by the seat of my pants, to just tear it all down and just have fun, to do whatever I want to do at any given moment. So yeah, I'm fairly contradictory. I'm fairly sort of, to use another space opera reference, I'm a little bit Vorlon and a little bit Shadow. And I guess it's also sort of my relationship to like books and stuff like that, or particular genres. I mean, my relationship to literary fiction is very contradictory. But anyway, moving on to prompt number 5, Tom Paris. He's a Voyager's dauntless pilot, and also really good character. I mean, I quite like Torres and Paris, particularly their slow burn romance. I thought was really good. So the Tom Paris question is what's the largest mechanical object you've ever piloted? Yeah, I've never piloted any mechanical object. Except for maybe like a remote car. My mom tried to teach me how to drive once, and that ended in disaster. So, yeah. So, prompt number 4, Neelix. So, Steve mentioned that Neelix is a divisive character on Voyager, probably the most divisive, except for maybe Cass. And he kind of didn't quite understand why, although I think he understands the Wesley Crusher divisiveness, although I don't quite understand that. But Neelix was actually my least favorite character on Voyager, and I think maybe part of that is that after a certain point, his character didn't really make a whole lot of sense narratively. That the writers clearly didn't really know what to do with him except for as a mascot, and that's why exactly did he get to stay around and Cass didn't, who the writers again did not know what to do with after a certain point. Now, maybe if his character had been more of a villain or something, maybe it could have worked, but otherwise he ran out his welcome. So the question for Neelix is, or the rest of it is Voyager's cook and morale officer. He once said, "It's nice to be nice. Are you nice? Just in general?" So I think I'm probably nicer than I think I am. But again, this is probably, as Steve said, one of those questions that other people probably better suited to answer than oneself is. Prompt number 3, 7 of 9. Who is the breakout character of Star Trek Voyager. So she is a recovered Borg drone who finds a new family on Voyager. So basically, her parents, the Hansons, were xenobiologists who somehow or other discovered the Borg and went to study them and were eventually assimilated, as was Annika. And she later appeared on Voyager during an awesome two-part episode called Scorpion. And then later joined the crew and booted Cass out. So the question is, what are your thoughts on the concept of found family? How close are your friends to family? So I like the concept of found family, both in real life and in fiction, that sometimes one's biological family is not supportive enough or emotionally stable enough or whatever, that for whatever reason, whether positive or negative, that's not like doesn't quite feel one's emotional needs, and that a family of choice, a family of friends, is the family for a person. Now, I've never really experienced it. Again, I don't really have, and I never really have had that strong friendship bonds with people. So I've never really experienced found family. But I like the idea of it. Prompt number 2. Ensign Harry Kim is perpetually awestruck and dumbfounded, except in Timeless, which I don't know if I've ever. Well, I mean, it's been so long since I've watched any episode of Voyager, I don't actually remember much of it. So, anyway, how annoying are you? Again, that probably would be a question for somebody else besides myself, but I might be fairly annoying, I think. So, finally, prompt number 1, Amelia Earhart. Couldn't we have had one for the Borg Queen? Was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Have you ever met a famous person? If not, have you ever come close? So, the only real interaction I've had with a famous person that I know of, I was in, for a month or so, I was in email correspondence with the poet Edward Field, who worked in the like mid 20th century and a little bit into the 21st. I think he's still alive, but he's definitely up there in age now. Outside of that, I've never really met any celebrity. Well, certainly I don't think I've ever met one in person. I came fairly close to catching a glimpse of former President Bill Clinton at the 2005 Texas Book Festival. But I don't know if that would necessarily count. And during that book festival, I did sit in the audience for talks given by David McCullough and Doris Kearns Goodwin, although whether that counts or not, I don't know. But other than that, I don't think I've really ever interacted with or been all that close to anybody who's famous for whatever reason. So that was the Star Trek Voyager tag. If you would like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged. I will be back tomorrow with me trying to figure out what my September reading plans are. I had thought about doing at least the first part of that on Monday, but as I was doing that video, I realized that I didn't actually want to. So my September reading plans, if I have any, if any do actually fully develop, are a bit in limbo right now. So I will report back hopefully tomorrow about that. And of course, on Thursday, it will be my book haul, which, despite the fact that there is not much in the way of manga, it's still going to be pretty big. So, a new booktube until tomorrow. Thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.